Hello, Facebook. We are on the final day of my 5-day outlining workshop challenge. This is bittersweet. These things are a lot of work to put together, so I'm looking forward to the break, but it was so much fun to talk about structure with you guys this week and to answer your questions and to really do a deep dive into how to put a book together. This is quite possibly my favorite topic to talk about. I never get tired of it, so I'm sure I will be doing another one of these again. If you have ideas for something you'd love to hear me talk about, please put them in the comments. I'm thinking about doing a more regular weekly live show to keep this thing going, and I would just love to hear what you think and what you guys would like to learn about. Okay, so let's get started. This is going to be a short one today because Act 3 is kind of a short act. It's usually a little shorter than the other acts in your book. I know that I said that every act is about 25% of the book, and if Act 4 is a little shorter, the math doesn't quite add up, but what can I say? I'm a writer, I'm not a mathematician. So Act 3 tends to be a little bit shorter just because once you get through the showdown, we're gonna wanna tie things up really quickly so that things don't drag. And that just tends to be a couple more scenes before it's time to say the end and move on. Hannah, I see your question, and you actually just reminded me. Since this is going to be a short one, try to get your questions in soon, like as soon as you have them. Don't worry if I'm talking. I won't acknowledge them, but I'm going to go over all of the questions that I can at the end, and I just want to make sure that I don't sign off before you guys have a chance to ask questions, because I know that that is one of the big reasons you show up live, is so that I can answer your questions about writing. So start getting them in now. I'll get to them at the end. Okay. Yesterday, we raised the stakes in your Act 2B. You know, we talked about your end of Act 2 high and low. We got to a point where we think that your main character is going to fail. Your reader thinks the main character is going to fail. Everyone is on the edge of her seat being like, what is going to happen in this book? Everything looks terrible. And if you don't know how to do that, if you missed my other videos, check them out. They're still on this page. I tell you exactly how to do that. And just one last plug, that if you still haven't got your outlining workbook, the link is going to be live forever. Just get it. Like, just click on the link and sign up now, and you can still get that workbook. Okay, so today we are going right into the final showdown. So these are the final scenes of your book. The end is within sight. Hopefully at this point, your reader is flipping through pages, cannot wait to get to the end of this book because she is so excited to see what is going to happen. And that's why we want to keep Act 3 pretty short and keep the pace moving forward. Because this is that feeling that you get where you can't stop reading a book, where you're just like, I just need to know what happens. I just need to finish the final page. That is the feeling that we are aiming for here. So the most important thing to focus on, if this is the kind of feeling that you want to get, the most important thing to focus on is your character arc, okay? How did your character change throughout the course of the novel? Do we see the evolution of that change evidenced through your character's choices and actions? So in the showdown, your main character must find the strength for one final fight. If you're kind of unsure about how you're supposed to do that, or how it's different from the end of Act 2 high, really think about what your character wants versus what your character needs, okay? So in Act 2, your character goes after what she wants and fails. In Act 3, she goes after what she needs and is triumphant. So, for example, Katniss refuses to kill Peeta at the end of Act 3 because even though doing so will help her achieve her ultimate goal of living through the Hunger Games, okay? She chooses what she needs, which is to make a statement about the Hunger Games, about the evils of the world that they live in, to become a symbol for the protest. She chooses that over what she wants, which is to survive past the games and to be with her family again. All right, that is her growth. That is how she grows and changes throughout the course of the novel. In Harry Potter, okay, think about the moment when he is faced with the mirror of Erised, because J.K. Rowling is such a brilliant storyteller, she basically just does this verbatim. He is faced with a mirror that shows him what he ultimately wants, all right? And at the beginning of the book, that mirror shows him reuniting with his family, and at the end of the book, that mirror shows him finding the Sorcerer's Stone and defeating Voldemort, all right? You cannot get more obvious with the change in character from want to need than in this book. This is the ultimate example of that. So depending on your story, the culmination or the showdown, this moment, this series of scenes, it can be a big fight like in Harry Potter, or if you read the Merciless books, like the end of the Merciless books, there's always a series of terrible fight scenes as people try to kill each other, or, you know, Katniss and Peeta threatening to commit suicide in the Hunger Games. It can be a big dramatic moment, or it can be something a little quieter. So if in a romance, this moment is just the moment when your character realizes that they need to choose each other despite the other obstacles standing in the way. If it's like a romantic comedy, this is usually the big, you know, final scene where the love interest does a big grand gesture. In more literary or contemporary novels, like something like The Fault in Our Stars, this just might be the moment that your character realizes that all of the risks and chances she took throughout the course of the book were really worth it for how much she grew and changed. So you can see how that might just be a quieter moment. It doesn't have to be 20 pages of fight scenes. Either way, the showdown doesn't end until your main character chooses what she wants, or excuse me, what she needs over what she wants, okay? Once the showdown is over, you only have one scene left to write in your book, okay? So it's something I call the after shot of the makeover. If you'll remember from our first live show, we talked about how the first scene in your book is the before shot of your makeover, all right? This is the scene that shows your character at her lowest, just the status quo, just everything that is wrong with her before the events of the novel transpire to change her into something different, okay? So you have the before snapshot, now you need the after snapshot. The last scene should be an inverse of the first scene, so think of it as like a mirror image. Think of showing your character, by showing her how your character has changed by placing her in a similar situation to the first scene, but reacting to it differently. So example, in Harry Potter, Harry Potter opens with Harry, like literally and figuratively cut away from his family because he is hidden under the stairs. Nobody loves him. Nobody likes him. He's all alone. He's kind of confused about magic. Like, he's very isolated. At the end of the book, we see him getting on a train, surrounded by friends and loved ones, ready to go face the Dursleys for another summer, because now he has all of the tools that he needs to do that. So even though we don't see him face the Dursleys again, we don't see him get like deal with them in a better way, we know he has the tools he needs to move forward and do that, because this scene is just, it does such a great shot of showing you this after snapshot of the strong, interesting person he's become. So I'll see a lot of people kind of just like mess up the endings of their books by, they just let them drag for a really long time. So instead of just doing a quick snapshot scene of the main character at the end of the book, kind of figuring it all out and ready to go face the day, instead of just one quick scene, it'll be 4 scenes of the main character tying up every single problem that happened in the book. And that is when it starts to drag and feel a little boring. So try and stay away from that. Try and wrap it up as quickly as you can. That's just, you're going to end on a high note. It's going to be, you know, leave your audience with kind of rewriting the rest of the story in their head, which is always a good thing. And you really just want to end with this one scene that is the mirror image of your opening scene. So if you're having a hard time still trying to figure out what that scene looks like, try doing a Pixar brainstorm to come up with some really good ideas to show the exact opposite of your opening scene. Other than that, like, I think that this is sometimes the easiest scene to write, because you kind of know how your main character has changed at the end. And if you've done all the work to set it up, these last final scenes, they kind of just really come together very quickly, in my experience. Okay, that is all I got. That is the entire outlining workshop. That is everything that I know about story structure. I'm going to start hitting questions now before I leave. So if you have one, I've got a couple here. If you have one, make sure to throw it in so I get to it before I head out. And for now, we're going to go to Hannah. Editing, that would be amazing. It would be great to have a breakdown of the different rounds of editing and how to objectively look at your work after you've been hammering away at it for weeks. So I think that is a suggestion for future live shows. And Hannah, that is brilliant. I will definitely consider trying to break down the editing process. It is a big, unwieldy, ridiculous beast of a thing. So it will definitely be something that we should talk about live all together and try and figure out, because I remember when I was first starting out as a novelist, I had no idea how to do it. Like, it is hard and nobody teaches you how to do it. So definitely we'll jump into that. Okay, Jane. How do you end a novel when it's a series and you know it's already going to continue on in another book? So Jane, I love that you asked this question. We actually had this question in the Instagram live special or live show that I just did. And I don't think I answered it very well, because there are two ways to do it. Okay. Basically the way that you should be thinking about this is, even if it's a series, every book should have a complete full story, okay? So you still have to have the character arc of the character changing and growing and becoming a different person by the end of the book. So I would still argue that you need the showdown, you need the final scene, and you're just going to want to leave a couple of windows open, a couple of questions left unanswered, so that the reader knows that there are still things that they need to pick up the next book for. So that is way one. Full arc, full story, and then we just have a couple of little questions left for the next book. So again, Harry Potter does a great job of this. The entire book could be a standalone of a boy's first year at wizarding school, but she leaves a couple of windows open. We don't really know what happens to Voldemort or if he's dead. We don't really know why Harry's hands can burn him and kill him. There's some things that we want to know next. So it's a good way of being like, okay, well, I'm going to pick up that next book because there are still things to learn here. The second way to do this is the Hunger Games way. So in the Hunger Games, she doesn't really... Like, her final snapshot is a really open-ended snapshot, and it asks more questions than it answers, if that makes sense. So on the final snapshot in the Hunger Games, if I'm remembering correctly, is they're on the train going back to District 13 after winning the Hunger Games, and we know that their life has changed, but she makes it very clear that they're still not safe. So Katniss's ultimate desire at the beginning of the book to save herself, to return to her family, to have everything kind of return to normal, that was smashed to smithereens. And in the final scene of that book, we realize that, like, this is a journey that is just starting, and she really kind of leaves us on a bit of a cliffhanger, okay? So that's another way to do it. I hope that kind of helps you out, but I think that the really good fundamental thing to know is that there's not a different structure for a series novel. You're going to want to structure it ultimately the same. The only difference is that you're going to want to make it clear that there's more story, and then you're going to structure your sequel in a very similar manner using this same structure. I've used this for every single one of my books, regardless of whether or not they are part of a big epic series or whether or not they're kind of something like The Merciless, where they could have been a standalone, but then I made it into a series. So it works for everything, and if it's going to be a series, you just need to make sure that there needs to be more questions left unanswered. Okay, I spent a lot of time on this and a lot more are coming in, so I'm going to hop on to the next question. Now that we have an outline, what do you think about novel writing software? Do you have a preference? Larry, I just use Word. I'm a simple person. I do not like complicating things. I have a lot of friends who swear by Scrivener, but for me, that was just like a lot of things that I needed to learn that I didn't want to deal with. So I just use Word, and honestly, more often than not, I use a pen and paper because I am old school, analog, technology. I will say that I like to use my timer app on my phone so that I can write in short bursts. So I'll write in like 25-minute bursts using the timer on my phone, and that's about as high-tech as I get. Sorry. What POV do you recommend for an author's first story, first or third person? If it is your first story, there is a lot of reasons why first person is easy and helps you kind of get into the character easier. So usually I find that the first story that you write tends to be the story that is most reflective of your own personal experiences. So the main character kind of feels like you. It's usually a story that doesn't stray too far from what you've experienced. Or if it's not, then consider doing that, because there are certain ways in which that makes it easier on yourself to get into the story. So first person allows you to be really familiar with your reader and really dig down into some of the hard parts of writing, like establishing a voice and establishing who your main character is. These are some really hard things to deal with. And so if you're writing your first novel, you're going to make it, you're just going to kind of like make it a little easier for yourself if you do that. That said, you absolutely do not have to do it that way. You know, if you try writing your first novel and you're writing it in first person, you're just like, ugh, this doesn't feel right. Try third person, you know, try everything. Try third person with multiple POVs. Try first person in past or in present, you know, mix it up until you really land someplace where you feel like you're having a strong connection with your reader through your voice, and go with that. Do not let my opinion change your mind. That said, you did ask for my opinion, and if I was going to do it all again, I would write my first book from first person. I did a lot of books from third person past tense with lots of different point of views, and I wish I could start over because I think that first person would have just made that so much easier on me and gotten me to being a published author a lot quicker. Okay, that is the last question I'm seeing, so I'm going to go ahead and close it out. Look, you guys were fantastic. I cannot believe that so many of you showed up to hear what I had to say about writing a novel and structuring out a novel. I am so stoked to keep doing this in the future, so keep throwing out ideas for what you would like me to talk about, and I will figure out some sort of a weekly show and probably be surveying you guys in the future. Can you do a live stream sometime about trash drafts? Absolutely, Erica. I think trash drafts are so important. If you don't know what that is, head over onto my blog on daniellerollins.com/blog, and I think that I have a blog post about trash drafts. Changed the way that I write novels. But keep throwing down your comments below on what you'd like me to talk about. Probably this next week, I'm going to take a little break to actually write the book that I'm supposed to be writing right now. And I'm going to do that, but maybe the week after I'll actually do a more regular, like probably Wednesday live show on here and on Instagram. I see, Yasmin, that you say a YouTube channel to find these videos would be great. I'm not going to do YouTube because I am already on so many social media channels, and the thing about being a writer is everybody thinks that you should be on all of the social media channels, and it's a lot of work to figure them out and set them up. So I'm just going to stick to the social channels that I have now, and I know that makes it kind of hard for you guys. I'm really sorry. I know it'd be easier if I was just everywhere, but I got to actually write my book still, so I have to do what I can do right now. But maybe in the future, if people keep showing up and telling their friends and getting other people to come, and we have, you know, more excitement and interest, then maybe I'll expand to some other places too. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and end this on a high note. I don't want to get all weepy and sentimental about how great you guys all are. So thank you again for showing up. Really, it means the world. One last plug: Breaking is out this week. Burning is out this week in paperback. Merciless 2 is out this week in paperback. If you have not read one or any of those books, go check them out. At least pick them up and look at them. And if you don't decide not to buy them, I won't be offended, but at least consider them. All right, and that's it for me. You guys have a fantastic weekend.